Have you ever felt ignored or underestimated by someone who should value your presence? It could be a friend, a partner, or even a family member. The feeling of being treated as if you were just another person hurts, and even worse, it slowly wears down your self-esteem. But today, I want you to imagine something different. What if it were possible to transform that pain into a powerful source of strength, and at the same time, cause desperation in the person who once didn't deserve you? The answer is not in shouting for attention or exhausting yourself even more. It lies in changing your focus, reinforcing your value, and turning the situation around in a way they never expected. In this video, I will guide you step by step through strategies that will not only help you break free from that toxic dynamic, but will also show you how to become someone truly unforgettable. If you're tired of giving your best to people who don't appreciate it, the time has come to change that. I will share stories, ideas, and by the end, you will no longer be the same. I only ask that you stay until the end, because the best is yet to come. The truth about those who underestimate you. When someone underestimates you, it rarely has to do with who you really are. Most of the time, it reflects more about their limited perception of the world and the people around them. It's as if they see you through a distorted mirror, unable to recognize the depth of what you offer. Often, this behavior arises because they have grown accustomed to your presence, assuming that you will always be there, no matter what. This sense of comfort, thinking you won't leave, creates a false sense of security, leading them to treat you with indifference. Now, let's switch roles. Think of someone you may have underestimated without realizing it. Maybe it was someone who was always by your side, so present that you stopped noticing their true value. When that person distanced themselves or changed, you felt the impact. That is exactly the experience you create when you stop exhausting yourself trying to prove your worth. The realization that you are not so predictable or easy to read can be devastating for the person who ignored you. And it is precisely that impact that changes the rules of the game. It's important to understand that people who underestimate you often live in an emotional bubble. They don't reflect on how much their actions, or lack of them, can hurt others. In many cases, they believe they have more control over you than they actually do. They think they can dictate the dynamic of the relationship, but everything changes the moment you decide to stop playing their game. When you prioritize yourself, that bubble bursts. Suddenly they realize that you are no longer available, and the emptiness you leave behind is an unexpected blow. And here is the most liberating truth. You don't need to shout, justify yourself, or demand attention. In fact, the less you try, the more powerful the impact. Your absence speaks louder than any speech. It creates a space, a silence that the person who underestimated you doesn't know how to fill. And it is in that emptiness that reflection begins. Did I do something wrong? Why aren't they here anymore? Did I lose someone important? These questions don't arise out of nowhere. They are a natural reaction to the change in your stance. So now, it's time to reflect. Who is taking up space in your life without truly valuing you? And, more importantly, why are you allowing it? There is nothing more transformative than withdrawing the energy you spend trying to please others and reinvesting it in yourself. When you do this, not only do you free yourself, but you also create a deep and unforgettable impact on those who thought they could underestimate you forever. Why some people don't value you. Have you ever noticed that some people only appreciate something once they've lost it? This happens because, in their minds, you were never going to leave. It's as if they were completely certain that your patience was infinite, that your efforts would always be available. And it is precisely that sense of certainty that you need to break. These people don't value you because you make it too easy for them to have access to you. You always answer their calls, reply to their messages, or accept empty apologies. Without realizing it, you teach them that your time and attention don't have much value. After all, why prioritize something that always seems within reach? The change begins when you stop being so accessible. This doesn't mean you should be rude or excessively distant, but it is crucial to show that your time is valuable. Imagine the surprise of someone who tries to reach you, only to discover that you are no longer as available as before. That's when the dynamic shifts. Another important aspect is understanding that some people will only recognize your value when they face your absence. It may seem cruel, but it's a reality. They need to feel the impact of living without your presence. And it is in that emptiness that desperation begins to grow. Those who underestimated you will start to wonder, did I go too far? Have I lost them forever? But here's a warning. You are not doing this to manipulate or hurt anyone. You are doing this for yourself because no one deserves to live chasing after those who don't value them. The power of turning the game around, without saying a word. Some of the most impactful transformations in your life don't need to be announced. In fact, the power of silence is often underestimated. While words can be forgotten or misinterpreted, your actions, or even the absence of them, speak for themselves. Turning the game around without saying a single word is like planting a seed in the mind of the person who underestimated you. They begin to wonder, what changed? Why aren't they reacting the same way anymore? And those questions carry much more weight than any explanation you could give. Imagine a situation where you were always the one insisting, the one trying to resolve conflicts, the one taking the first step, even when you weren't receiving the same effort in return. You were predictable, but predictability can become a problem. It creates a false sense that you will always be there, no matter how you are treated. When you break that cycle, something magical happens. The person who once ignored your efforts starts to notice their absence. And here's the key. It's not because you made a scene, but simply because you stepped away. This silent action is so powerful that it confuses and destabilizes those who were used to your usual behavior. This transformation is powerful because it forces the other person to look at themselves. Without you there to fill the void, offer support, or solve problems, they are confronted with the reality of their own lack of effort. And it is in that emptiness that regret begins to grow. In the end, many people only recognize the value of something once they've lost it. And when you stop reacting or trying to please, you send a clear message. You don't need anyone who doesn't value you in order to move forward with your life. This kind of emotional independence is rare and deeply impactful. Do you know what makes this change even more powerful? Serenity. When you no longer respond with anger, sadness, or attempts to convince them, you show a strength that few expect. This is not about being cold or distant, but about protecting yourself and choosing to spend your energy in healthier ways. It becomes a natural reflection of someone who truly understands their own worth. Without drama or confrontations, your change sends a clear message. I don't need to prove anything to you. I am fine where I am. Be honest with yourself. How many times have you exhausted yourself trying to change someone's perception of you? And how often did it actually work? Now, try the opposite. Let silence do the work for you. At first, it won't be easy, but the peace and the impact you create are unmatched. When you turn the game around in this way, the person who underestimated you will never see you the same way again. And best of all, you will be living the life you deserve, without depending on anyone's approval or recognition. Silence. The most powerful weapon to surprise. Silence is one of the most powerful weapons you can use. It not only protects your inner peace, but also deeply unsettles those who underestimated you. While words can be questioned, justified, or even ignored, silence is impossible to overlook. It creates a void, a space where the other person is forced to reflect on what happened, even if they don't want to. It's like an echo that resonates in the mind of someone who thought they had control over you but now feels lost, unable to understand what changed. The greatest strength of silence lies in its ability to make the other person question themselves. When you react with anger or try to explain yourself, you give them something to argue about, an opportunity to place you back in a position of needing to be heard or accepted. But when you choose not to respond, when you decide not to engage, the dynamic shifts completely. What was once predictable becomes a mystery. Why didn't they say anything? Did they notice something I didn't want them to see? Have they grown tired of me? These questions alone have the power to unsettle even the most self-assured person. Additionally, silence grants you something that words never can: time. Time to reflect, to heal, and most importantly, to reconnect with what truly matters. Instead of wasting your energy trying to be heard by someone who doesn't value you, redirect that strength toward yourself. In doing so, you regain your dignity, confidence, and focus. You free yourself from the expectations and demands of others, and that is profoundly liberating. But perhaps the most surprising aspect of silence is the impact it has on the person who underestimated you. When you stop reacting, you create a void that the other person doesn't know how to fill. Suddenly, someone who was used to receiving your attention, your words, or even your negative reactions realizes that they have lost something important. And that absence speaks louder than any speech ever could. It forces them to acknowledge that something is missing, and that's where regret begins. That's why you should remember, silence is not weakness, nor is it a way to avoid conflict. It is a powerful declaration of self-control and self-worth. It silently states that you don't need to beg for recognition or exhaust yourself just to be heard. And in the end, it makes one thing clear. You prioritize yourself over any dynamic that does not serve you. Reinforce your value, and the rest will follow. Everything changes when you decide to prioritize yourself. Reinforcing your value is not about changing others. It's about changing how you see yourself. When you truly believe in what you deserve, your actions begin to reflect that conviction, and the people around you respond accordingly. Think about how you've been treating yourself lately. Are you taking care of yourself as you should? Or have you allowed others to dictate how you feel? Reinforcing your value is like building a fortress around yourself, not to isolate yourself from others, but to ensure that only those who truly deserve it can enter. One of the simplest ways to do this is by learning to say no more often. Stop accepting breadcrumbs. People who don't value you often count on your willingness to comply, on your tendency to accept less than you truly deserve. Saying no might feel scary at first, but it is profoundly liberating. Another way to reinforce your value is by investing in yourself. Learn something new. Take care of your body. Dedicate time to a hobby that makes you happy. When you grow as a person, not only do you feel better about yourself, but you also become more interesting and enigmatic to others. And never forget, the world reacts to what you believe about yourself. When you project confidence and self-worth, people have no choice but to recognize it. Those who didn't deserve you will start to realize what they've lost, while those who always valued you will draw even closer. Distance, the remedy that heals and teaches lessons. Sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is to walk away. Distance has immense power because it provides perspective. When you are too close to a situation or a person, it becomes difficult to see clearly. But by stepping back, everything starts to make sense. Imagine a fire that you constantly keep alive by feeding it wood. It burns intensely because you are there, present, contributing. Now imagine stopping, ceasing to add fuel. The fire that once seemed endless starts to fade. That is exactly what happens when you distance yourself from someone who doesn't value you. Distance also teaches valuable lessons to the one who underestimated you. It creates a void that is impossible to ignore. And in that void, questions arise. Why did they walk away? Did I do something wrong? Often, this is where regret begins. For you, distance brings peace and clarity. You start to realize that you deserve more than what you were receiving. In that space, you have the opportunity to rebuild yourself, grow stronger, and set new boundaries for your well-being. But be careful. Distance only works when it is authentic. Don't use it as a tool for manipulation or to force someone to act the way you want. Distance is for you, for your growth. Those who truly value you will find their way back to you, and those who don't simply don't deserve your time.